It's often said in reefing that you shouldn't chase numbers. I'm not quite sure I agree with that, but there is certainly one number that you should chase, and that is salinity. The purpose of this video is to help you understand a bit more about salinity, the importance of it, what is it, the impact of having the wrong salinity, and to prevent you from making mistakes that could impact your reef negatively. We'll also talk about some examples using ICPs to highlight how salinity affects the chemical makeup of the water, and talk about the measurement of salinity as well. In a nutshell, salinity is the concentration of the salts in the water. The most dominant salt, of course, is sodium chloride, but other salts to do with calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and potassium also make up a big part of salinity. So this is a reef ICP from Fauna Marine. There are two different flavors of ICP. This is the more basic one, and this does not include a salinity metric. What it does have is sodium as the first macro element, and that's not by mistake, because sodium can be used as an indicator. It's not 100% accurate in all cases, but it's a pretty good indicator for the overall salinity of your tank. We can see the green number here of 10,700. That is 35 PSU or 35 PPT, and the measured amount is 10,907. So this gives me some confidence that this ICP, I can make decisions based on these numbers, and in fact in this case these numbers aren't too bad, so there's not a lot to do here. In this next example, we look at a total test. So this is the more advanced Fauna Marine test, and it includes measurements from equipment other than ICP. One of those is salinity, and the salinity is measured in PSU, which stands for practical salinity units. It's arguably the correct metric or scale for measuring salinity in a reef tank. In this case, this sample was 26.8, so it's a very, very low salinity. When we look at the numbers here, we can see 372 calcium. The sodium is reflected as very low as well. But if you notice on the right hand side, we've got this special column here called rel 35 PSU. What this does is it is a calculation that if you were to correct the salinity, so go from 26.8 up to 35 PSU, is what each of these elements would measure. So, and I'm highlighting this to really show you the difference it makes to these elements. So sodium goes from 8,670 up to 11,300, a massive difference. Sulfur, magnesium's always a good one, so 1219 up to 1592. Calcium from 372 up to 486. Now, why is this so important? Well, if I was not aware of this 26.8 salinity and I went in and did a magnesium test and it came back at 1219, my first instinct would be to dose more magnesium. And we see this all the time. What you don't want to do is dose magnesium, because when you come to correct that salinity, you will be raising it up to even a point where it's too high. So this is where it's really important to, before making dosing decisions, to ensure that you know what the salinity is and have an accurate way of measuring it. There are a few reasons why you might get low salinity. 2 or 3 really that spring to mind. The first is those using calc. Kalkwasser is calcium hydroxide plus reverse osmosis water, and for those who are focusing a lot on raising their pH, quite often you can lose sight of the fact that you're reducing the salinity quite a bit in the process. It's quite common, particularly in the United States, to see ICPs with really quite low salinity and very high calcium, and that's normally a sign of calc. The second would be a leak. If you had a leak somewhere in the system, even a slow one, you can decrease the salinity quite quickly if there's water escaping the system. Third would be your skimmer. If your skimmer is taking a lot of skimmate out and you're not replacing that volume of water with fresh salt water, then your salinity will be lower. If you have low salinity and you want to increase it, it's very simple. You just add salt water. The way to do that is to add a small amount, a jug of water, let's say every day, over and above the sensor for your auto top off, and the salt level will increase as the excess water evaporates. The other option is to switch your auto top off and replace any evaporated water with salt water. So let's have a look at an example of high salinity. We'll go back to another reef ICP and we'll use sodium as a guide to determine what our salinity might be. We can see here 13,000, it's very far above even the upper limit of the reference range. So this is suggesting to us that there's quite a high salinity in this system. As you can see, all of the macro elements are quite heavily inflated. So 1692 magnesium is very high, calcium at 560, potassium at 532. Now what I've got to say here is that seawater, or aquarium water in particular, has a limited capacity for these ions. And what happens is when you reach a limit, there is a reason why we have these upper limits on the reference range, is because the seawater is not able to contain those elements. What they end up doing is reacting and forming a precipitation and falling out of solution. That can create fuzzy detritus, or even worse, it's an area that we've been studying for a little while now, is it precipitates onto your surfaces, and that causes all manner of problems. So keeping particularly things like calcium and strontium in line is very, very important for a reef tank. So therefore the salinity is essential, that you keep it within the range that we specify. So you've got high salinity. What could be the cause? The most obvious one is if you're dosing a 2 or 3 part dosing system, including something like Fauna Marine Boiling Light. The result of that dosing system is sodium chloride, which is salt, and it will increase your salinity. So it's important to monitor it, take out a little bit of water, now and again replace it with fresh RODI water to compensate. Other reasons could be you've overfilled when you've water changed, you've added something to displace water, like adding rock can increase the water level in your sump, which ultimately when it evaporates off is going to leave a higher salt level. And a strange one like decreasing the pump speed on your return pump can decrease the head height, the amount of extra water in the display tank, and increase the sump height, and that can surprisingly change the salinity as well. That would include things like pumps getting clogged and slowing the flow down. And so over time, you may see that the flow slowing down on your return pumps could actually increase your salinity a little bit. How do you fix a high salinity issue? Well, you simply add fresh water, fresh RODI water over and above the sensor for your auto top off. Or remove some water with a jug and replace it with fresh RODI water. Very simple. When it comes to measuring salinity, this is what I use. The Milwaukee digital salinity refractometer has been an absolute godsend. What a wonderful piece of equipment. This has been accurate, reliable, quick, simple, easy way of measuring salinity in the farm, and I simply wouldn't be without it. Other methods which I think work well, a hydrometer. This involves typically a glass long tall beaker that you fill with water. You plonk the hydrometer into it, and you measure on the scale on the side of the hydrometer what your salinity is. They're precise. I wouldn't say they're particularly easy or quick. They're quick to read, but there's a setup time. But they're also very fragile piece of equipment. It's quite a precision laboratory type piece of equipment, and they're quite expensive as well. So that's those two pieces of equipment really are what I would be going to for measuring salinity. You'll notice I haven't mentioned the optical up to the eye refractometers. I don't like them. I've never had success with them. Half of them out there are not even really designed for seawater. The cheap ones are designed for brine, not for seawater. Those that are for seawater, the challenges are always about getting consistent light to it. Difference in light can change the reading. They don't temperature compensate very well. The amount of water that you put on the prism can vary, and that can affect the reading. I've just never found them very consistent or reliable. There are digital handheld salinity meters. I've never found those reliable either. I think they're basically a waste of money. If you're serious about a reef tank and you want to have a good consistent measurement, I would really recommend the benchtop salinity refractometer from Milwaukee. A lot of people don't know that temperature is actually a big factor in the accuracy of measuring salinity. It varies by temperature. So when you come to calibrate any device that's measuring salinity, you have to ensure that your calibration fluid is the same temperature as your tank. If you don't, you're going to have a discrepancy. The best way to do that is, let's say you're using RO, put the RO in a bag or in a tub or something, put it in your sump, float it in your sump for a little while until it equalizes with your tank temperature, and then use that for the calibration. And this applies literally to any device that you're using to measure salinity. This is a very useful product to have in the cupboard when you've recalibrated your device for measuring salinity. Having a reference solution, being able to verify the calibration was good and you're getting 35 ppt can save you a lot of hassle later on, just to verify that you've got it right. When using a salinity reference, make sure that its temperature equalized with your system. All I do is throw the bottle in the sump, make sure the lid is on tight. But Fauna Marine have a great little product here. It's a 100 ml bottle. It's very cheap, and it can save you an awful lot of problems if you just have one of those at home. When you're taking a sample for your ICP, it's also a good idea to check your salinity before you send the ICP and record it. That way, when the ICP comes back, you'll have a salinity reading and you can cross-check to see how accurate your calibration is. When using the Milwaukee refractometer, there is a great feature on here. On the screen you can see there's two numbers. There's the measured amount and there's the temperature. The temperature is of the sample bowl here where you place the water sample. What I tend to do is just warm this metal bowl with my hand until I see the temperature matching that of the tank, and that gives me an incredibly consistent reading from whether I'm just measuring the salinity of a system or calibrating. It's a very cool feature of the Milwaukee. I hope this video was useful for you. We are trying to raise the awareness of salinity. It's an important parameter that we need to track, and I feel that maybe not enough people know of the importance of salinity. We've got a lot of content planned for this channel, but we would like to grow the subscriber base. So if you would share, if you have people, have friends that might be interested in this video, that could benefit from it, give us a like. And we have a whole pile of content planned for this channel. If there's specific things that you would like to see, put it in the comments, and we can prioritize the things that you would really like to know more about. See ya.